Hey, are you ready? It's time for some truth. I get to read what I started with. You see, I've got my cue card right here, which is the comments of the last live feed. So I'm going to answer them right now. I have to repeat some of it, which is fine. Those of you with R&M, you're going to hear it again. Maybe it can be like deja vu. Ready? Question number 1 comes from Johnny Rockberry. You are a pretty decent piano player. How long have you been playing? I started actually playing when I was 7 or 8. And whenever my parents were looking at a house, because we needed a bigger house because my brother had been born, all the places that had pianos were the houses that I liked. My parents purchased a player piano, and I would play by ear, and I would beg for lessons, piano lessons, because I wanted to learn how to play. And my parents gave in, and I started lessons with Ruth Bursick. And she taught only classical, and I took lessons from her for 4 years. And I quit. Can you believe that? The reason I quit is because I had a lesson shortly after there was a recital where you get judged for your playing with a numerical grade. 5 being superior, 4 being very good, 3 being, I think, satisfactory. I was told with a kind of disappointed / angry look that I got a very good at recital. And at first I was happy, and that happiness turned to embarrassment because I was told all of her other students got a superior, and I'm the only student of hers that got very good. It was difficult for me to keep up with reading music at that point because it had become so complex and advanced, more advanced than I could read, because I relied on cheating, playing by ear. So I would ask her to play sections, and I would remember the piece from the lesson and then sound it out when I got home. Cheating. Kind of like the way when you're learning how to type, if you look at the keyboard, you're not learning how to type. You're cheating by peeking. And it slows you down if you don't learn it the right way. So I said to my mom, I quit. I don't want to go anymore. And mom said, okay. And the following fall, when I was a freshman in high school, I signed up for a class, jazz improvisation. I took it all 4 years. I was in a group of graduates from a palindrome, 1991. It's the same way backwards, just forward, like the word mom or dad. Tim Miller, who's an accomplished guitarist who teaches at North Texas, which is a prominent music school, actually. Scott Gwinnell, who went to North, who now teaches at Wayne State University and has a big band in the Detroit area that plays, and he composes. Chris Plansker, who wrote a jingle for Coca-Cola that became very popular. And Colton Weatherspoon, who plays in the Detroit area. All of us, in addition to many others, were part of that core group. We jammed every day. First period. I was never late for school. And I learned a lot, but I learned a whole lot from my new instructor, who is Chris Plansker's teacher, Bess Bonnier, or Bonnier, Bonnier. She's legally blind. And I owe knowing my chords to Bess. The way that you would read is off of a fake book or a chart, where the chord is written out like this. Right? That's your left hand. And your right hand is what you would normally expect to see. Notes on the staff. I could read that real well. What I had a challenge with was reading all of it. Some people are really gifted at that. I'm not the best reader, but I know how to improvise because of my ear. That's my talent from God. And I've developed it over the years. And I know that my style is different than anybody else's. But that's true of all musicians who play jazz. It's real challenging to tell the difference between any classical player, because they all play what's written. So you really don't get a chance to appreciate somebody's individuality who's a classical player. But you do from somebody who either composes and creates music or improvises, because everybody improvises differently. They all have their own style. My grandfather, I found out after he died, paid for all of my lessons because my parents had divorced. And things became very different in my family, which I consider to be my mom, my brother, and I. My dad is part of my family, but um, when a parent is not in the house, it changes things. So he paid for all my lessons, and I didn't know it until after he died. I didn't have a chance to thank him. But every time I'm back up in Detroit, I go to his gravesite like I do my grandmother's. Because my grandmother died when I was 10, and my grandfather died when I was 14 or 15. My grandmother, on my dad's side, died of lung cancer. She was a smoker. My grandfather died of an aneurysm in his leg because he had had a fall. And I think it was in a cast or something. I think. And he had remarried a woman by the name of Jenny. And they were out eating at Friendly's. All of a sudden, he just went. He died there eating a meal. It was really unexpected. So I never had a chance to thank him, and I didn't even know that he did that. But he fostered inside of me a love for music and for sharing that music with other people. So I do compose and I do play, and I'm looking forward to cutting an album this spring or early summer and having it available when I'm touring, hopefully, the 18 remaining capitals. I did 30 writing handwritten letters to the governors requesting help in establishing contact with the FBI, because I was writing report after report or tip after tip. And they weren't responding. And the police weren't doing anything for me. And I tried everything under the sun. I started writing a lot to Internal Affairs. And they never responded back, except one time. One time they did call. I missed the phone call, but they left a message. They said I should either contact my community liaison officer or call them back. I had been in touch with the community liaison officer, Dwayne Hicks, at that time. 13 messages I've left. I finally got a return call. I explained to him what was going on. He said, "It sounds like a conspiracy theory." And said that he was not going to be the community liaison officer anymore. And that a new person was starting. And that they were in training the following week, but that she was starting the week after that. It just so happened that she sent an email to the Google group. I still get all the messages, or at least the ones that aren't about me. Which means whoever is controlling my Google account is letting some go through, but not all of them, and censoring me. Anyway, I got her email address because she wrote, "Please contact me anytime. And here's the phone number." Well, I already had the phone number. "And here's my email." So I started to email Patty Myers, who was Dwayne's replacement. And I think I wrote a total of 11 emails, chock full of information. It's all true. And when I spoke with her, she sounded a little bit annoyed about all of the emails, kind of like it was troublesome to her that there was all this reading and all this information. And she told me to stay in my own lane. She said, "This isn't a police matter. And what difference does it matter what neighbors think about you?" Well, when what they think are lies told to be from the government when they're not is a problem. And I had proof that the lies were told and could be verified with actual arrests and medical records. And I needed police to be a voice of authority in telling Patty Ryan that she was lied to because she spread misinformation in a voice of authority. I started documenting on February 2nd, 2021, my efforts to get the police's help. Because between 2018 and 2020, I dialed 911 6 times, trying to report neighborhood harassment and other crimes that have occurred that I've been a victim of. The reporting officers who respond would not create a report of crime. So I kind of knew dialing the police, doing it that way, was not going to work. There's online reporting. And every single report I have filed has been rejected. Guess what happens to rejected reports? They disappear out of the system. As if you never reported it. It's a convenient way to show. No report. I was able to get one in. Report number 213026793 on October 22nd, 2021. This is after I received 45 911 transcripts from public records between 2017 and 2021. On those transcripts are some pretty interesting details. It's how I know a HIPAA violation occurred. It's how I know certain lies were told about me because Patty repeated them and said they came from the Secret Service. I know they're not the Secret Service because I met the real Secret Service on June 20th, 2019 in Washington, D.C. at Precinct 1. And the reason I went there is because that morning in my head, my captors told me it was my last day to live. I gathered up all my evidence and I drove out to Washington, D.C. I had no clue where I was going or what I was going to do when I got there. But I knew I had to do something because I knew that remote neural monitoring could kill me. It can create stroke. And I didn't want to die. So I got my car with all my evidence that I had. And I drove 413 miles that day. I drove about 95, 100 the entire way. I got into DC, not really knowing where I was going, and it just so happened that I was next to a patrol car at a red light. I rolled down my window and they looked over and they rolled down theirs. And I said, "I'm sorry, can you please tell me which way the White House is?" And they said, "Oh, there's a substation right up the road. Follow us and we'll give you directions." I said, "Great." We drove 2 blocks on the same road we were on. And I started explaining what I was doing in DC. And I had printed off my first ever report to the FBI, to IC3, from June 20th, 2019. That report, I talked about neighborhood harassment and a couple that would not leave me alone. I mentioned V2K and the officers who read the report, I think, tried to contact the FBI. And they didn't show up. But you know who did? The Secret Service. They are some serious people. Very professional. Their job is to protect the president. So because I had mentioned the White House, that's why the Secret Service came out. They took pictures of all my devices, the barcodes and everything. I explained what was going on. And they took pictures of my pictures because I made I probably have 400 or 500 glossy prints that were from my phone, but because videos and pictures keep getting deleted out of my phone, I spent the majority of one summer up at Midwest Photo transferring important pictures onto glossy prints so that I would have actual evidence of things. I don't know how much money I spent, but it didn't matter because it doesn't matter how much my freedom costs. I want to be free. I have the resources at that time. So they took pictures of that. They also took pictures of my journal. They took a picture of some of the pages. And they let me go. I wasn't ever arrested or detained, at least not to my knowledge. No one ever said I can't go somewhere. I went out for a cigarette while waiting for, I think they said somebody was going to show up. I think that's exactly how it was told to me. There are people that are on their way to talk to me. Great. It's very anxious to talk with somebody because a lot of stuff had been going on in the neighborhood that just is not right. Because this started 2015, 16. I really noticed it in 2017. That's when the V2K started. And it took 2 years to get over my fear of what might happen if I reported crime. Because people do get murdered with this weapon. And I already knew because of the physical sensations to my body that they were really in control of my body. And there's not a thing I could do to defend against it. So November 2nd, 2021 is when I started contacting community liaison officers because they deal with community issues. And this is definitely a community issue. It's community-wide because my neighbors were trying to get me to move from the home I own. And it's a collective effort. So it does involve them, it does involve the community. It's just that the community has first dibs on the police. See, they got the police on their side. So when I came around and was saying things, like I said to an older officer who passes out lollipops to kids, when I told him there's neighborhood harassment that's going on. This is January of 2020. He said, "Robert, you're the problem in the neighborhood." Really? Why? I wouldn't tell. So, 2 strikes on community liaison officers. And then there was a specialty officer assigned, Officer Lutz. And Officer Lutz said in a phone conversation, which I recorded, made a video of, and put on my YouTube channel, Robert Milligan, that he would address any and all concerns in regards to me having issues reporting crime. He's addressed nothing at all. And when I said the really important thing that I mean is to have an officer present to have a conversation with Patty Ryan. And he said he had to ask for consent from her. And Patty told him no. That was the end of that. So, a little background there. Next question is, I'm doing that after a side-by-side comparison of him treating everyone. Oh, I already talked about that, about people treating me like crap. And surprisingly, oh, yeah, a surprisingly long clip of me driving inebriated. Indie Normal Top Secret. Where do you get the idea that I'm inebriated? Oopsies. You just told on yourself. Yeah. Inebriated. Off of what information? Please tell. Since you want to tell people things, let's have it. I'll expect your reply in the comment below. I'm going to stop the video at this point, and I will pick up here shortly. I'm going downstairs for a cigarette. There is one more question I will answer. He ran. Do you understand that hygiene is a basic function for self-reliance? That's why they teach children to brush their own teeth and clean out their fingernails and wash. Sir, are you aware that if you test your tap water, you can't swim in it because the chlorine level is so high. It's considered unsafe. Now, with that being said, I take showers. I just took one now. I would say, sir, you have an obsession with watching me, which means you're a neighbor. Because nobody else out in public would have that to say about me. But a neighbor would who's close enough to hear when I turn the shower on, which means you're in earshot. Rats. He figured it out again. Yeah. Or you're viewing me with R&M, which also might be true. So there are some days, because I'm not going anywhere, I'm working hard trying to get my freedom back at home. So if I wear the same clothes 2 or 3 days in a row, because I now sleep in my clothes with my wallet in my pockets and with all my things, because people are coming into my house illegally while I sleep. You can shut the fuck up. My neighbors have made my life hell. I'll answer more questions later. Bye.